Hi, here is this week's major space news from around the world. For the second time this month, SpaceX has begun installing 29 Raptor engines on Starship's first orbital-class Super Heavy booster, potentially paving the way for several crucial milestones. Given that Booster 4 has already completed a range of fit checks, the implication is that SpaceX is now installing the 29 Raptor engines that will support the first static fire test campaign for the flight Earth is Super Heavy. SpaceX conducted a cryo-proof test on GSE tank this week. The GSE test tank underwent cryogenic testing. A new 3.6mm barrel section made of a thinner steel was spotted. Since SpaceX last launched a batch of Starlink satellite to low Earth orbit on June 30th, SpaceX has been quiet about what's next for the constellation. Last week on Tuesday, August 24th, at the 36th Annual Space Symposium, SpaceX President and the Chief Operating Officer, Gwen Shotwell, explained the break. SpaceX had already flying laser-equipped terminals on its Starlink satellites. Now they are fitting new Starlink satellites with new laser terminals for all the future launches. These laser terminals, or laser crosslinks, were added to a batch of Starlink satellites back in January 2021. These links allowed satellites to transfer information to one another and communicate in other ways as well, and help not to use or build ground-based stations. Also, Starlink's new users can expect a dramatic fall in the cost of their Starlink dishes later this year. It will cost just the half of what it costs now, said SpaceX President Gwen Shotwell. Hence, one-time fee for the Starlink dish could drop around $250 before falling again to $125, making it more affordable to everyone. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk says he may be able to launch the company's massive new Starship to the moon for NASA probably sooner than the space agency's 2024 target, even in the face of a contract and other delays. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson told Space News last week on Monday, August 23rd, he anticipates further delay because of the spacesuit's design and delays to the agency's plan for Artemis mission, which since 2019 has targeted a 2024 moon landing. Musk, who is known for his optimistic timelines, made the earlier than 2024 comment on Twitter in a response to a question from Everything Artemis, an unofficial Twitter account, asking if he could make 2024 deadline happen, and Musk's response was probably sooner. Residents of South Texas uses the highway primarily to travel from Brownsville and nearby towns to Boca Chica Beach, the southernmost beach in Texas. When the road is closed, no one can access or remain on the beach. This situation has become a logistical headache for SpaceX. Now SpaceX founder Elon Musk has a potential solution. The Brownsville Herald reports that officials from Musk's Boring Company met with the Cameron County officials in July to discuss digging a tunnel from south end of the South Padre Island to the north end of the Boca Chica Beach, facilitating an alternative access to the Barrier Island. NASA hopes that the commercial space station will orbit Earth once the International Space Station eventually retires. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said last week on August 25th at the 36th Space Symposium. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson also said he remains confident that Russia will remain a part of the International Space Station through the end of the decade, but warned of an emerging space race with China. Hope that's all for this week. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.